How Native Americans Survived Harsh Winters, the Secrets of Their Food. Native American tribes, spread across a vast continent, developed ingenious methods of survival in some of the harshest climates on Earth. This was especially true when enduring long, harsh winters, where food was scarce and freezing temperatures posed significant risks to survival. Central to their success was a deep understanding of their natural environment, a reliance on sustainable food practices, and a sophisticated system of food preservation and preparation. This article delves into the strategies Native Americans used to survive harsh winters, focusing specifically on the secrets of their food systems, preservation techniques, and knowledge of the landscape. For Native American tribes, surviving winter was not simply a matter of endurance, but also the art of balancing nature and human ingenuity. These indigenous cultures, with a deep respect for the land, developed sustainable ways to feed themselves throughout the year, even in the harshest environments. Food, the foundation of their survival strategies, was a combination of hunting, gathering, agriculture, and innovative preservation methods. Knowledge, passed down through generations, allowed them to live in harmony with their surroundings and thrive in conditions that less resourceful populations could overcome. Let's explore the main methods Native Americans used to survive the harsh winters, highlighting the role of food in their seasonal cycles and the cultural practices that accompanied their dietary strategies. Adapting to different climates, the role of geography and environment. The survival strategies of Native American tribes were as varied as the environments they inhabited. From the frozen tundra of the Arctic to the dense forests of the Northeast and the arid deserts of the Southwest, each group adapted its food sources and preservation techniques to local geography and climate. Understanding these regional differences is essential to appreciating the ingenuity and resourcefulness of these peoples. For example, tribes in the far north, such as the Inuit and Cree, faced some of the harshest cold conditions on Earth. Their diets relied heavily on animal proteins, fats, and fish, which were essential for survival in the cold. Meanwhile, tribes in the eastern woodlands, such as the Iroquois, had access to forests rich in animals and plants, as well as fertile land for farming, allowing them to store large amounts of plant-based foods such as corn, beans, and squash to last through the winter. Hunting and gathering, securing protein and calories. Food security during the winter largely depended on successful hunting, fishing, and gathering efforts during the warmer months. This section explores how Native Americans secured protein and other important nutrients to survive the long, cold months. Bison, elk, and caribou, nutrition on the plains and mountains. For many tribes, large game animals were the backbone of their diet. Bison, elk, and caribou not only provided a rich source of protein and fat, but also bones for tools and hides for clothing and shelter. Plains tribes, such as the Lakota and Cheyenne, relied heavily on bison, organizing large hunts in the summer and fall to ensure enough meat to last through the winter. In mountainous regions, such as the Rockies, elk and caribou were hunted in a similar manner. Small game and fishing, survival in forests and coastal areas. In the forests and along the coasts, smaller game like deer, rabbits, squirrels, and birds were hunted year-round. Coastal and riverine tribes, like the Chinook and Salish, had access to abundant fish supplies, which were dried or smoked for preservation. Fishing, in particular, was a critical component of winter survival, as it provided a reliable source of food when game was scarce. Foraging for roots, berries, and nuts. Native Americans were also adept at foraging for plant-based foods that could be stored for winter. Nuts, seeds, and dried berries were commonly gathered in the fall, while root vegetables like wild potatoes and camas were dug up and stored in underground pits. These plant foods were rich in carbohydrates and vitamins, complementing the protein-heavy diet provided by hunting. Food preservation techniques. The ability to preserve food was perhaps the most crucial factor in ensuring survival during the long, cold months when fresh food was unavailable. Native American tribes developed sophisticated preservation methods to extend the shelf life of their food. Drying and smoking were among the most common methods used to preserve meat. Meat was sliced into thin strips and hung over a fire or laid out in the sun to dry. Smoking the meat added an extra layer of preservation by preventing the growth of bacteria. The dried meat was lightweight and easy to store, making it ideal for winter use or for long journeys. The ultimate survival food, pemmican was a highly nutritious food made from dried meat, usually bison, mixed with fat and sometimes berries. It was an energy-dense food that could be stored for long periods without spoiling, making it an essential part of winter survival, especially for nomadic tribes or those in particularly harsh environments. Pemmican provided a perfect balance of protein and fat, which were critical for maintaining energy in cold climates. Fermentation and pickling. Fermentation was another method used to preserve foods like fish and vegetables. Fermented fish in particular was a staple for many northern tribes, such as the Inuit, who buried fish or seal meat in the ground to ferment over time. This method not only preserved the food, but also made it easier to digest in the cold months. In addition to fermentation, some tribes used pickling techniques with salt and herbs to preserve vegetables. The Three Sisters, corn, beans, and squash. Agriculture played a significant role in the survival of many Native American tribes, particularly those in more temperate climates. The cultivation of corn, beans, and squash, known as the Three Sisters, was a cornerstone of their agricultural practices. The Three Sisters were grown together because of their symbiotic relationship. Corn provided a structure for the beans to climb, beans fixed nitrogen in the soil, and squash spread along the ground, preventing weeds and retaining moisture. This intercropping method was both sustainable and efficient. Together, these three crops provided a balanced diet of carbohydrates, protein, and essential nutrients, ensuring that tribes had a reliable food source throughout the winter months. Storage and preparation methods. After harvest, the crops were dried and stored in underground caches or specially constructed granaries. Corn could be ground into meal for bread or porridge, beans were dried and stored for stews, and squash was sliced and dried or stored whole in cool, dark places. These food stores were critical for surviving the winter, particularly for tribes in the Northeast and Midwest, where agriculture was a key part of their food economy. Seasonal food cycles and preparation for winter. The success of winter survival depended on careful planning and preparation during the warmer months. Native American tribes followed a seasonal food cycle, taking advantage of the bounty of summer and fall to prepare for the leaner winter months. Summer and fall as gathering seasons. Summer and fall were the primary seasons for gathering food. During these months, tribes worked tirelessly to hunt, fish, gather, and harvest as much as possible. Meat was dried or smoked, plants were foraged and dried, and crops were harvested and stored. The fall was also a time for communal hunting and fishing expeditions, where large groups worked together to gather enough food for the entire community. Harvest celebrations and storing for the cold months. Many tribes held harvest celebrations in the fall, giving thanks for the bounty of the land and preparing for the winter ahead. These celebrations often included feasts, ceremonies, and communal gatherings, reinforcing the importance of food as a central aspect of Native American life. After the celebrations, the focus turned to storing the food for winter. Underground pits, caches, and granaries were filled with dried meat, fish, berries, nuts, and crops, ensuring that the community would have enough to eat during the cold months. Spiritual and cultural practices around food. For Native American tribes, food was more than just sustenance. It was deeply intertwined with their spiritual and cultural practices. Many tribes believed that the animals, plants, and land were gifts from the Creator, and they practiced rituals of thanks and respect for the natural world. Rituals of thanks and respect for the land. Before and after hunts, Native Americans often performed rituals to thank the animals for their sacrifice. These rituals reinforced the belief that humans were stewards of the land, and they were responsible for treating it with respect and care. Similarly, harvest festivals were opportunities to give thanks for the bounty of the land and to ensure that the community remained in harmony with the natural world. Communal feasts and storytelling traditions. Food also played a central role in communal gatherings and storytelling traditions. During the winter months, when outdoor activities were limited, tribes would gather around the fire to share meals and tell stories. These gatherings helped to strengthen community bonds and pass down knowledge, including survival techniques, to younger generations. Regional variations in winter survival techniques. While there were commonalities in how Native American tribes survived winter, each region developed its own unique strategies based on the local environment and resources. Arctic and subarctic, Inuit, Yupik, and Cree strategies. In the Arctic and subarctic regions, where temperatures could plummet to extreme lows, tribes like the Inuit and Yupik relied almost exclusively on hunting and fishing. Seals, whales, and caribou were critical food sources, and their fat provided the necessary calories to survive the cold. These tribes also developed advanced methods of storing food in the frozen ground, ensuring that their food supplies remained safe throughout the winter. Eastern woodlands, Iroquois and Algonquin techniques. In the forests of the eastern woodlands, tribes like the Iroquois and Algonquin relied on a mix of hunting, fishing, and agriculture. The Three Sisters were a staple of their diet, and they supplemented these crops with game and fish. The Iroquois, in particular, were known for their large communal longhouses, where food was stored and shared among families throughout the winter. Southwest Pueblo and Navajo adaptations. In the arid Southwest, tribes like the Pueblo and Navajo developed unique agricultural techniques to survive in a harsh environment. They built intricate irrigation systems to grow crops like corn, beans, and squash, and they stored these crops in large underground granaries. Their diets were supplemented with small game, such as rabbits, and foraged foods like wild berries and nuts. The survival of Native American tribes through harsh winters is a testament to their ingenuity, resourcefulness, and deep understanding of the natural world. Through careful planning, sustainable food practices, and a strong sense of community, they were able to endure even the most challenging conditions. Their ability to thrive in diverse environments, ranging from the Arctic tundra to the Southwest deserts, underscores the adaptability and creativity living in harmony with nature. As we look back on their survival techniques, we gain insight into the sophisticated relationship they maintained with the land and the vital role that food played in their spiritual and cultural lives.